My own dearest Elizabeth, it is with much pleasure that I again take my pen in hand to write you a few lines to let you know that I am yet upon the earth, and in such health soldier may look for in these hard times. I trust that when this reaches you, it will find you enjoying the same good blessing, the strength given you for every day, and a quiet heart in the midst of all your cares. Since I last wrote, there has been some change in our situation. I could not rest easy until I had told you how mercifully the Lord has dealt with me in the midst of danger. I have not yet received another letter from you since that which brought such comfort to me, and which I spoke of in my former lines. But I do not doubt that you have written, and your words are on the way, delayed by the many hindrances of war. Until they come, I take up my own poor pen again, for I feel nearer to you when I am setting your name upon the paper and telling you, as best I can, what passes with me from day to day. I often read over your last letter until I almost know it by heart, and each time it seems fresh, as if your hand had but that moment laid it in mine. Some days ago, we were at last brought face to face with the enemy in earnest. It was not what the newspapers would call a great battle, yet to us who stood in it, with bullets singing about our heads, it seemed heavy enough. Word came into camp early that morning that a body of Federal cavalry had been seen upon the road, feeling their way toward the town. Our regiment was ordered under arms, and after some marching and counter-marching, we were drawn up along a low rise by the edge of a cornfield, the stalks dry and rustling in the wind. Caleb stood upon my right, as is his habit when we can contrive it, and I remember that he reached over and gave my arm a little shake, as much as to say, "Keep steady, Nat, we are in this together." We had not long to wait, for the firing began upon the skirmish line in front. At first it was but a scattering crack here and there, but soon it ran along the line in a quicker manner, and then our own officers gave the word to advance. I cannot rightly describe to you the confusion of such a time, for all that I had pictured in my mind before was different from the reality. There was a great smoke from the guns, and the reports of them near at hand were so loud that it seemed as if the very air were torn in pieces. Men were shouting orders and answers, and through it all, one could hear that sharp, wicked whistle, which I now know to be the sound of the balls passing. Once I felt the wind of one close by my cheek, and I thought of you in that instant more clearly than ever in my life. And I said within myself, by Paul, let it be with her name upon my lips. The whole affair did not last so long as it seemed. The Federals, finding our force stronger than they had looked for, threw off at last, and we did not pursue, being under orders to hold our ground. When the smoke lifted somewhat and the noise died away, it was a strange thing to look along the line and see the gaps where men had stood but a short time before. I thank God that both Caleb and I came through without a scratch, though more than once I thought he was taken, for the dirt flew up near his feet and a splinter from the fence rail struck him upon the sleeve. He only laughed afterward and said he would not have you think him frightened, but I know his heart beat as fast as mine in that hour. We lost 2 from our company, killed outright, and several were wounded, some severely. One poor fellow, young Tom Sabry, whom you have heard me speak of as the boy with red hair that sang so often in the evenings, was struck in the breast and did not live many minutes. I was near enough to see him as they laid him down upon the grass. He tried to speak, but the blood gathered in his throat, and at last he only looked up at the sky with such a wondering expression that it went to my own heart. Before nightfall, we had buried him with the others in a little trench by the edge of the wood, and one of the older men offered up a prayer over them, simple but very moving. It seemed hard to think that only the day before he had been as full of life as any of us, jesting and talking of the time when he should go home again. Since that day, the camp has worn a somewhat different look. The men go about their duties as before, for in the army there is no long pause allowed for sorrow. Yet there is at times a quietness over them that I did not notice earlier. In the evenings when we gather about the fire, there are moments when the talk dies out all at once, and each man seems taken up with his own thoughts. I dare say it is only natural after such a trial, yet I confess it makes me feel more keenly the uncertainty of our condition. I look at Caleb across the flames, and I think how easily his place might be empty. And then I turn my mind to you, to all the strength I have. For if I once gave way to fears, I know not where it would end. The Indian companies of whom I wrote before were not in the thick of the skirmish, being farther out upon the flank. Yet we saw some of them passing through the trees, riding very swiftly and firing as they went. The officers speak well of their conduct and say they are of great service in watching the roads and the forts. They are strange to my eye, not from any want of manhood, for that they have in full measure, but their manner is so silent and their faces so grave, that I cannot help but regard them with a kind of awe. They do not crowd about the fire as we do, but sit a little apart among their own people, talking low together in their own speech. I often find myself looking toward them without rightly knowing why, as if there were in them some knowledge of these woods and hollows that we do not share. Do not be alarmed, my dear Elizabeth, at this account of our late action. I have told you of it plainly, because I would not have any concealment between us, but you must not think that we are at every hour in such peril. Many days pass in the common business of camp life with no sound of hostile gun within hearing. Besides, I feel a strange composure when I think of these things, not as if I did not value my life, for I feel it more precious now than ever, but as if my times were wholly in the hand of God, and that no ball can touch me unless He permits it. I know that you pray for me, and I believe that those prayers have stood between me and harm more than once already. I cannot tell you what a support it is to me to think of you in the midst of all this. When we lay upon our arms the night after the skirmish, not knowing but that the enemy might return, I could not sleep for some time. Stars were bright above the camp, and the men lay about me on the ground, some muttering in their dreams, others breathing heavily from fatigue. My thoughts went back to our little room at home, to the lamp upon the table, and the sound of your foot upon the floor. I saw you, in my mind, bending over your sewing, as I have so often watched you, and it seemed to me that if I could but hear the rustle of your dress in that hour, I should not be afraid of anything in this world. At last, I commended you and myself into the keeping of the Lord, fell asleep, with your name upon my lips. I must now bring this letter toward a close, for I've written more than I intended when I first sat down, and the light grows dimmer as evening comes on. Give my love to your dear parents and to all who may inquire after me. Tell them that, though I have now seen somewhat of the sharp edge of war, I am not cast down, but endeavor still to discharge my duty as a man and a Christian, trusting that God will, in His own good time, make an end of this strife and restore us to one another. Until that day, remember that every shot I hear, every march I make, and every prayer I breathe, your image is ever before me, as constant as my own heartbeat. Write to me whenever you have the means, my beloved, for your letters are more to me than I can express. Though many miles lie between us, I feel that our hearts are not divided, and that thought keeps me from sinking when all around looks dark and uncertain. Nothing more at present, but that I remain, as ever, your true and affectionate husband, Nathaniel.